Did you know volunteering lights up your brain the same way as runner's high or a yoga glow? It's called a helper's high. That's because when we push past our comfort zone, the body floods us with pain-relieving endorphins, fuel that once helped early humans run, hunt, build, and survive. Volunteering taps into the same ancient wiring and gives your brain a high with a purpose. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Stir the Coco. If you're new here, bienvenidos. That is welcome in Spanish. I am your host, Posh Teacher. Our show explores everything and anything that boosts your brain, your coco. Before we begin, I would like to give an hola shout out to Al and Judy for volunteering and always showing care and compassion towards others. Research is finding that helping others triggers the brain's pleasure centers and releases endorphins, the body's natural morphine. Neuroscience also demonstrates that giving and volunteering releases oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. These hormones have the effect of boosting our mood and blocking cortisol, which is known as the stress hormone. Neuroscience has demonstrated that giving is a powerful pathway for creating more personal joy. Volunteering can distract you from your own problems. In fact, studies have found that when people with medical conditions, such as cancer, counsel other patients with those same conditions, the counselors often experience less distress and disability. The Mayo Clinic reports that volunteering improves physical and mental health. Volunteer activities keep people moving and thinking at the same time. Research has found that volunteering among adults aged 60 and over provided benefits to physical and mental health. Volunteers report better physical health than non-volunteers. Research also has shown that volunteering leads to lower rates of depression and anxiety, especially for people 65 and older. According to a study by the National Library of Medicine, volunteering could be a protective factor for cognitive loss. An academic journal by MIT Press for the American Academy of Arts and Sciences concluded that older volunteers had reduced risk of hypertension, delayed physical disability, and enhanced cognitive and lower mortality. Dr. DeHart of Family Medicine at the Mayo Clinic explains that instead of just writing prescriptions, he recommends volunteering to his older patients, primarily as a stress reducer. Compassionate actions that relieve someone else's pain can help to reduce your own pain and discomfort. So, ready to volunteer? Let's chat with our guest that will share more on this topic.
Yeah, I know. Wait, yeah, you just look at it. It's so sad. That's good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stir the Coco. And I'm really, really excited today to introduce Coleman Yoakum.
Yes, that's correct.
I got it right. And you are an honorary guest here, Coleman. You are doing so many great things for the community. So I'm going to give the microphone to you. Can you share your journey from the beginning, how you ended up in Pontiac, Michigan, and what you are doing with the Micah 6 community?
Sure. So I grew up in Central Arkansas. Pontiac is not home.
Oh my gosh. So you didn't even know where it was on the map?
Nope. I went to a small Bible college in Arkansas, and the thing about kind of weird places, like small, weird Bible colleges, is that you find your people. And found my group of friends, and we were doing community work in a neighborhood not far from our university, just supporting families, doing things like trunk or treats for kids, and for Easter we had a petting zoo with animals that our friends were raising as a competition in the dorms.
Oh my
We
gosh.
snuck all their animals out and brought them to the neighborhood. For a petting zoo, we did things like, taking kids to our college basketball games and dollar movie nights at the Rialto movie theater, and all the while, and then a lot of just moms calling us and going, hey, I'm stuck at work, my relief hasn't shown up, but my kid's about to get off the bus. Can somebody just go get him and hang out for a couple of hours till I get off work? And that sort of stuff. And we really loved that and enjoyed it. And as we were coming up on graduation, we just said, let's just go somewhere and do this. Like, this was way more fun than anything I did in a class, and I think way more meaningful than anything I'll do in an office. So
Yeah, absolutely.
let's just go somewhere and support a neighborhood. And we talked for a long time about where we wanted to go, and ultimately we weren't getting any closer. And so I said, well, what about the Detroit area? And my friend said, sounds great, you first. And so I packed everything that fit into my car, and I drove up here and lived down in Detroit for a while, and just hung out with a lot of great organizations down there. But decided I wanted to go somewhere that wasn't about to get this wave of support that was coming to Detroit. And so we looked at Flint, Pontiac, Saginaw, Mount Clemens, and Ypsilanti, and ultimately settled on Pontiac. I bought a house there for $10,000 in 2012 and called my friends and said, move to Michigan and do this with me. And I had 5 friends that quit what they were doing and moved here.
Wow, those are good friends.
I have the best friends.
Okay, so you got here to Pontiac, and what did you have in mind? What was your purpose for?
Yeah, so we just knew we wanted to
house and
find a neighborhood and just be good neighbors and see if we could work with a community to sort of just improve it for the better. And we got here and said, not only am I not from Pontiac, I'm not from Michigan. And so let's just take a year and hang out and ask good questions, make friends in the neighborhood, and maybe a year from now we'll have some idea of something that we can do and jump in on. And as we started getting to know people and asking questions and hanging out, we decided first to work on community gardens, which at the time we thought was a little cliche. Everybody does gardens, but everybody does it because it's a need, right? So we need healthy food in our neighborhoods. And then we expanded to kids programs, and then we added basic home repair work, things landlords should be doing but aren't. And so helping people with basic home repair, and then sort of the yeses and being good at some of those things led to bigger and bigger things. And now we're doing bigger things too.
Yes, and I can't wait to get that. So the challenges as you navigated this, were there challenges, throughout the year as you were, moving into the neighborhood? I mean,
sure. I mean,
or did you see them as challenges? I mean, maybe
you just sort of.
What was your perspective on that?
You're learning, right?
Okay,
and we would all get together, weekly and just be like, here's a thing that I saw or experienced, or a thing that someone said. Has anybody else seen this or experienced this? And then there was, being new to the neighborhood was just like, how do we get to know people here? And I found out pretty quickly that I was an extrovert amongst introverts on my team.
Okay.
And so, a lot of it was just early on just going, go outside, be on the porch. You're just sitting around and reading a book. Go read that book on the porch. And we said, I always said, just pretend you're in, Leave It to Beaver.
Yes.
Everyone that walks by, say, hi, how are you? Good to see you. Beautiful day. Weather's terrible, whatever it is. Like, just be friendly. And we kind of got the sense that it was working the first time I was sitting outside and I was working on something, and somebody drove down the street and I waved and they drove down, and then they stopped and they put it in the reverse and they came back and they said, I've heard of you. And I said, you've heard of us? And he says, yeah, y'all are the white people who wave at everyone.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's like one of those first times we were like, okay, the word's getting around. Like people know that
new
we're
neighbors.
here now. And this is just sort of just being friendly is how we got in and started making friends and getting to know a lot about our neighborhood. And for a lot of people in the community, like, that was kind of a breath of fresh air. It's like, people don't talk to each other here. People don't stick around long enough to know each other very well or get into each other's business. And so to have somebody whose whole job was like to get here and make friends was really different.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So you started after the year, a lot of things happened that you started. Is that when Micah 6 started? Mm-hmm. Or tell me how, yes.
So we moved in August of 12, and we just said we're not doing anything for a year. We're just going to hang out, make friends, ask questions.
Love
And then, the following summer was where we kind of, had heard enough that, gardens and fresh food were an option or something that people wanted.
They really want. I love how you research that.
And so we, and this is the case all the time with most things in our neighborhood is that, a lot of our folks in our neighborhood were older Black folks who are only maybe 1 or 2 generations out of the South.
Okay.
And so we'd have conversations and, I have family in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, or Jackson, Tennessee, or Montgomery, Alabama, and I used to spend summers with my family and wherever. And so a lot of our neighbors actually had a little bit of gardening knowledge. They knew how to grow because their families grew back where they were from.
Yeah.
And so, there's this is what we talk about happening a lot is like there's a problem in the neighborhood, and all the knowledge to fix the problem is already here. The gap is these resources in the middle.
Absolutely.
The money to buy seeds or a lot or good dirt or whatever. And so, and that's kind of the space that we work in a lot is just the resource development.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you literally a breath of fresh air for these people because now they can contribute with what they know.
Sure. And we have access to people and money and and people who like what we're doing and support. And so we can hear from the community what the issue is, connect those people to resources to actually make it happen and do the work in themselves in the neighborhood.
And you said that there was an old grade school, right, that you had your eye on? Or it came to you?
So we moved into this house, and all this time across the street was a large vacant elementary school, Webster Elementary School. It closed in 2007. And had just sort of sat there. It's on M59, a lot of eyes on it every day, and people just driving by and seeing it sort of get worse and worse and worse over the years. And we spent a lot of our time looking at it and going, man, I hope somebody does something good with that one day. And, the school district was ordered to sell their buildings, and so they sold a number of them to a developer, and he and I became friends. And, he'd say, hey, I just walked through this building with a guy and he wants to turn it into, he wants to demolish it and turn it into like a strip mall for whatever. And, there's another guy I talked to and he, he's thinking about turning it into a marijuana grow facility, and just sort of like hearing all the options and going, none of those are particularly helpful for trying to turn the neighborhood around.
Wow.
And so in 2017, we ultimately reached an agreement with that guy on purchasing the building on a land contract for $200,000, which was a pretty big leap for us. Our annual budget at that point was $200,000. We were still all working other jobs. I worked at Panera Bread.
No,
and
really,
Coleman. I'm just like, oh yeah, great. We'll
you were
renovate this
hustling.
building. And so, it was a really big leap for us to take that on and figure out how we were going to do this. I'd never built a building before. I don't know anything about building buildings, and so, but that's how we ultimately came to own the building.
Oh, and so now, I mean, exciting times. What's going to happen in that building? Right?
Yeah. So the first 2 years, the thing that comes up a lot in Pontiac is community centers. That Pontiac used to have about 6 community centers, and people remember their community centers and learning how to swim at the Hayes Jones and play tennis at the Ewalts and learn how to play chess at the Boys and Girls Club or swim at the YMCA. But none of these are open anymore. These are all closed. So there are no active community centers in the city anymore.
Okay.
And so we said, if we got this building, what does it look like for us to turn this into a community center? And not just a community center, but one sort of separate from the city budget. So if the city ever hits hard times again, the first thing that always goes when your city runs out of money is Parks and Rec.
Absolutely.
And so what does it look like to build a community center separate from city funds that operates itself? And so we just sort of started slowly walking down this path. We did a big neighborhood survey. We interviewed 242 people in our census tract, so right there in our community, and said, if we turn this building into a community center, what do you want to see? What do you not want to see? What would be helpful to you? What do you think would be helpful to your neighbors? Do we care about the building at all? It's probably costs half the amount to knock down a building and build something new than it does to renovate something that's sitting there. And so, and we said, okay, like the neighborhood said, 84% of people said keep the building. And so
I'm sure it must be beautiful. I mean, is it because it's an
a great
older
building.
structure?
Yes, it's a really wonderful building. And so we said, okay, we're going to keep the building. But we just sort of asked, like, what do people want to see? And all the things that people said kind of boiled down to 4 buckets, which were arts and culture, health and wellness, youth programs, and entrepreneurship. And so we approached tenants that all, or prospective tenants that all sort of fit into those buckets. And
Fascinating.
we've had 100% of our space committed since 2019. And
Wow.
those folks, and so that's when we launched our fundraising for this project, was December of 2019. And then the world happened, and
A
that's
little hiccup.
yes, yeah, and that slowed us
No.
down a little. But what a great case study for why something like this is so important to a neighborhood is
Right.
that, we would be talking to people during the pandemic and we'd be saying, our neighborhood is suffering right now in these ways. How much would something like this building alleviate in this moment? It has childcare, it has healthcare
Yes.
in it, it has access to public transportation, a small grocery, so
my
how much
goodness.
better would my neighborhood be faring during the pandemic if these things were accessible? And so
Absolutely.
that really built the case for the need for this building and for something like this in the city. And so we were able to close on financing in April of 24 and broke ground that month, and we will be fully occupied and everybody will be up and going in our building by April of 26.
So it's happening. Yay.
It's coming.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And well, before because I'm going to talk about what's coming up in November, but people, volunteering is, people like to volunteer, and they call it the helper's high, right? You get doing acts of kindness is good for the brain and dopamine, and what things can people do to volunteer?
Yeah.
in Micah 6?
We love our volunteers. We could not do what we do without all of the hands and bodies that come alongside to help us make it happen. But if you ever come out to Micah 6, you will always get the talk, the volunteer talk.
Okay,
And
tell us.
the volunteer talk I always say is that, we're really great at volunteers. We have so many people who come and help and can jump in and are doing different things with us all the time. But we didn't move here for projects. We moved here for the neighborhood. So if a neighbor walks up and you're doing something and they want to talk or chat, or some kids want to kick a ball or whatever, we always say, someone can come and do that job later, but this moment is not recreatable. So
Love that.
hang out, get to know my neighbors, play with kids. That's the real fun stuff at Micah 6. So there are always projects. So, we've got events that are always happening. Our annual back to school event, we give away about 1,000 pairs of shoes every year for back to school.
Love it.
We've got a Christmas toy drive that we do in December. Last year we did toys for 1,356 kids. We've got a hat, coat, and glove day coming up November 1st. We do 2 block blitzes. This is where we just sort of pick streets and we do home improvement projects on those streets, beautification, home projects. And so it ranges. Yes, it ranges from hanging out with kids to handy projects to, all sorts of stuff in my neighborhood, just kind of whatever percolates up from the community. And so, and now next summer we're getting ready and this is an example of just listening. My friend Andre comes over to my house one day and he says, what white people always have? And I go, I have no idea what's about to come out of his mouth right now. I was like, what is that? And he says, you always have family pictures. Because all of us grow up in neighborhoods where every 16-year-old kid gets a DSLR camera before they go on their summer trip to Costa Rica or whatever. But now Sears and Kmart and JCPenney don't do family pictures anymore.
Yeah, you're right. Yes.
So you've sort of got this generation of folks that are growing up without family pictures.
Yes.
And so we're bringing together a group of photographers to just take family pictures for 40 families in our neighborhood next year. We've teamed up with a salon and with a barber shop in our neighborhood who are going to do family haircuts beforehand. And
What a great idea.
This is the listening, and we go okay, how can we pull together something like this and make it happen?
Oh my gosh, how rewarding.
There is so much for anybody with any skill set or no skill set at all,
Yes.
or I'm shy, or I just want to hang out with kids, or whatever it is. There's
a place
something
for
at
you.
Micah 6 for you.
So at Micah 6, there's something coming up in November, right? It's a big fundraiser. And what are your expectations from this fundraiser for the Micah 6 community?
Yeah, so the idea is, have you been to the train station yet, the Central train station?
Yes, in Detroit.
So I I've sort of had this idea bouncing around in my brain about something to do for Webster as a fundraiser right before it opens.
Yes.
And then I walked into their basically their art gallery space about the renovation of that building.
Yeah.
And I went, this is exactly what I've been thinking of. And so we're doing a gallery show at an art gallery in downtown Pontiac just about the renovation process of this building. So
Great idea.
oddities, just strange things that we have found in that building.
Oh,
things
yay.
like
Give us a sneak peek.
Sure. So there is in the basement. So in the basement of this building is enormous. It was 28 feet deep, and it was full of water when we got it. And so the process of getting all this water out has just been so bizarre. But we pumped it all out, we dried it out, and we went down and etched into the wall is the name Olaf, and I forget the last name. And I said, Olaf. And so I just took a picture of it and I sent it to my friend Mike McGinnis, who works at the Historical Society, and said, what do we know about this guy?
Yeah.
And he goes, Olaf. He was a Norwegian immigrant. He moved here in the 1920s, and he quickly got a construction job when Pontiac and Oakland County were booming and building, and he's actually scratched his name into a couple of buildings that he worked in.
Oh my God. Okay,
so,
that is super cool.
Just like
my
so
gosh.
interesting, strange, fun,
Yes.
things like that. There's a children's author, Robert Munch, who wrote the book I'll Love You Forever and Paper Bag Princess. Well, Webster won a Scholastic Book Fair competition in the 90s, and he came and did a book reading, but he thought the building was so beautiful that should be the setting for one of his books. And so there's a book called We Share Everything, and he sent his illustrator to go and illustrate spaces in this building for the setting of this book. And so
it's in the book.
it's in the book. And so we'll have a wall of the panels of these paintings from the book, and then side by sides of those places in the building, and it's really
How
fun.
magical.
Yeah.
How magical.
Yeah,
Oh my
really
gosh.
fun.
And I've seen pictures of the school, and just from the outside, it looks beautiful.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah. And
it's good. It's
even the
not a
the
typical school now.
right, yes. The story of the
Plain.
architect is even, this is
you
a guy
imagine?
who builds a career out of accidentally going over budget all the time. And so he was, for this building, he was given $135,000, and by the time he was done, he had spent $336,000.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
It's like going on a shopping spree, right?
Exactly,
You probably spent too
exactly.
much. Well, we're excited then. And how can people get information to still be part of this fundraising event?
Yes, yeah.
We'll link
So
your
we-
information.
We
in the
still
show.
have tickets for sale. So we know
Good.
we have a lot of alumni in the area who are very excited about this renovation. And so Friday night is an alumni-only dinner.
Okay.
And then the more public event is Saturday night. But if you don't want to go to a fundraising dinner, which I don't blame you. I think often think they're very boring. But if you just want to see it, you can come in anytime on Saturday and just take a walk through the gallery and see all the different exhibits and things like that we've created. But you can find out more on our website, which is MICAH, M-I-C-A-H, the number 6, the word community.com.
Okay, and we'll link all that for everyone to see.
That'd be great.
Well, Coleman, we can't have you leave without learning a little Spanish, although
Okay.
you probably know,
I know,
you know
a little
poco.
Spanish, yes.
So here's the manzana, our famous manzana from Stir the Coco. And I have a question for you.
Okay.
All right, here we go. If Micah 6 had a theme song, what would it be?
If we had a theme song.
Yes. And,
I'm running through all like my Beyonce songs about working hard and grinding it out. If you don't look too deep into the meaning, every day I'm hustling. Like every day it is a grind to figure out the things that we need to figure out to make our neighborhood a little bit better. So they'd land somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there, and that's great. It's just inspirational, and we really think of what you're doing for the community. And I'm glad you came up here to Michigan, and because I obviously have a connection with Pontiac, and I'm excited to see what's happening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show, and we will link all the information, and hope everyone supports Micah 6.
Sounds great. Look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. And you can follow us also at Posh Teacher 1 and at the YouTube platforms of Stir the Coco, NBC TV. Subscribe, share this episode with everyone you know, and we'll catch you next time, and keep stirring your cocoa.